Welcome to How to Do Digital Ministry, the show where we talk about how to do digital ministry. I am one of your hosts, Reverend Jim Keat, Digital Minister at the Riverside Church, Director of Online Innovation at Convergence. I should know what I do, I think. And co-host with this episode, the one and only Reverend Bethany. I want to say Rev Bethany because that's how it shows up all over the internet.
Yeah, Rev Bethany is good.
You're in Denver doing all things digital ministry. So
Yep.
before we dive in on talking about how to cultivate community online, which is what we're talking about, what's happening in Denver and what's happening in your corners of Denver?
Well, the Denver Nuggets are the national champions for basketball, so
Good work. Way
we
to
had a
go.
lot of
You
good
did it.
parades and some parties out in town, so that's been really fun. Especially being a Detroit girl, like the last national championship parade I remember was Red Wings, which was ages ago.
Oh, little while,
So
little while.
love it. Um, yeah, it's been a little bit rainy. People are a little bit sad, but they also complain about not having enough water. So I'm like, I feel like this is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone who was watching this hopefully knows all the great things you're up to, but in case they don't, you're in Denver, like legitimately just doing digital ministry and
Yep.
cheering on the Denver Nuggets. You are helping the Presbytery of Colorado.
Presbytery of Denver. Yeah. So there's
Denver,
a couple
okay.
of them in Colorado. But yeah, Presbytery of Denver, they have a great network of what the PCUSA calls new worshiping communities. And they have started 4 new ones like now, and I'm one of those, and they're calling it an incubator. And so we're doing all different things. Some of us are doing like hiking and service. Other people are working with minority groups in the Denver area. Mine is complete church, online, digital spaces. How do we make digital sacred for people? How do we reach people in those theological deserts that don't have access to many options in Christianity, so that they can maintain their faith, their relationship with God, but maybe don't have an in-person church that's going to be able to care for them in the way that they deserve.
Yeah, that alone. I mean, I love you were doing this stuff before you were in Denver as like, a thing you just did while being a pastor at a church, and now it's nice that you can just do this.
Yes.
So big kudos to the Presbytery of Denver for,
Yes.
believing in an investment like this. Big fan, big fan.
Yeah.
Which brings us wonderfully to what we're going to talk about today. How to cultivate community online. So I don't know if you ever hear people telling you that online stuff isn't real, and unless you're in the physical space, it doesn't count. And internet friends aren't friends. Although you and I have only ever been in the same physical place once,
Yeah, like
twice,
a couple hours.
twice. We had coffee when you were in town the other time too. Barely. Okay. So just maybe if we were sitting down for coffee and I'm dipping my toe into this digital stuff, what would you say? How do you cultivate community online? How do you even go about doing that?
I have been shocked at how not very different it is. You care about the people, you create connections with them, you reach out, you listen to them, and a lot of the people I work with, they don't have an in-person person that's going to care for them in this way, so a phone call is everything to them. So I think not degrading that experience of just talking, it's just talking on the phone, it's just meeting on Zoom, it's just a chat room. These are real words that people know you're saying in a
Yeah.
real way, and they know that you're carried. As long as they know those things, it's pretty much what we do in person when we see people. I would say it takes a little bit more intentionality because you're not walking into a room on Sunday and being like, "Oh, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's going on?" You have to be like, "Okay, who haven't I seen in a while? Who haven't I heard, an update from?" And be intentional about reaching out for that. But otherwise, it's relationship.
Yeah. That's so huge. Just letting people even learn that or I mean, I think we've all encountered it because of the past, few years of what we've experienced around the world and everyone being pushed to, encounter online spaces in a new way. But I think people need to be reminded again and again that these online things are still real relationships. I mean, I think I've literally been saying this for over a decade, but virtual is not the opposite of real. It's the opposite of physical. They're both real. Just because someone shares something in an online space doesn't mean it's not a real emotional sharing that's being shared and received. But then, so yeah, maybe it's a matter of just reminding our own people again and again and again, especially the people who are in the physical space. These digital things are also valid and they're doing something that's significant.
Yeah, I would say that that's also really important to not, you have to really cultivate some leaders who are also going to reach out. So it's not just like, oh, the pastor is the only one who reaches out to me. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this other person that's on Zoom, they care, they greet each other, and so you do kind of have to be intentional about telling people, like, hey, have you talked to so and so? Could you be one of my leaders? That just kind of in the back of your head is like, who haven't I heard from? Who do I need to
Yeah.
reach out to? Engaging with other conversations that's happening in the chat room. So I've got a Discord and being like, I realize you saw it, you read it, even just a like, a heart, so that I know you were there is really helpful for me to be like, oh, I was seen, someone saw my thing. Maybe they didn't have anything to add or, say a comment back, but they saw what's going on in my life.
Say a bit about Discord because so far we've said Zoom and Discord as, some
Yeah.
of those platforms that can be used to cultivate community. We probably all know what Zoom is. We've all been on that 1,000 times over our lifetime now. And hopefully people are still using it. I still use it every week at Riverside and what we do. I mean, more than every week. Every week on Sunday, we have some specific Zoom things that I'll talk about in a minute. But Discord, I am a Discord newbie in many ways. I am trying to learn this thing because all of the cool people I know are using it. And I'm like, okay, there must be something there. So I just need to dive in and start splashing. But what is it and how or why would you use it to help cultivate community in these online spaces?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm a newbie too because I have a person who's part of our tapestry, my ministry, who is an expert, and so they're the ones who have set it up and done all the fancy things with it. So I just kind of engage, but it's essentially a chat room. It started as a place where like gamers would go to like talk about this level and what do I do to get past this boss and that kind of thing. But it's definitely expanded, especially during COVID. I have chat rooms with like my friends. So instead of having a group text, we have a Discord channel where we can say like, "Hey, how's everyone going?" We have different things like, general, the next camping trip talk, random meetups, our kids, so that anyone who's got kids talks about their kids in this other one. So they have kind of this segmented conversation that you can go in and talk to just the people who have kids or just the people who are going on the camping trip. And so for my ministry, we have the general, we have an introductions page, but we also have like a memes place, like memes that could help, like memes that were like, oh man, that really like hit my spiritual soul. Let me share it. We have a place where it's like, just like sacred space where we can talk about different like devotionals that we've seen or heard. So it just kind of is a chat room. And it's open 24/7. So, yeah.
Okay, hearing a lot of that is helpful just for me as I'm learning this stuff. But like I've been thrown into the world of Slack for a lot of areas of my professional life. And Discord has a lot in common with Slack in like making channels. But Slack is very much feels like it's a work tool that solves the problem of email sucks. Discord feels like it lives in more of a anyone can join community kind of space and it's a part of your life, but it does a similar thing. Whereas rather than having a billion email or text threads with family or friends about different stuff, it can all just live and organize in there. And what I love hearing you talk about the channels in the Tapestry Discord, whereas it's so easy for people online to end up just by default by themselves, like because you're not physically in proximity, in a space like you would be if you walk into a building, and you to have just a container to put the thing. I saw something and I want to share it, and now I have a space to share it. And there are people there who will receive it. Like that's the makings of relationship and community. And by simply providing a structure by which it's possible, like so that's the work you're doing of creating this infrastructure, and then it allows people to just have that exchange and have an outlet and have an input. And that's huge. That's
Yeah.
literally life changing. And I love that you say it's open 24/7. It's always
Yeah, open
available.
24/7 and searchable. So like if someone has come in the past and been like, "Hey, I'm struggling with suicide ideation and what do I do? Like my faith is really like does this mean I'm a bad Christian?" We can talk about that. And someone else who might be like, "I don't want to say that," can see that past conversation and be like, "Wow, these people will respond to me. They will respond to me in a positive way. So, if I want to, I can reach out to this one person who I know has also had this experience. So, like, I kind of in the future, I see, like, I'll probably have like a closed, because I can set it up for different people to have access to different ones. Like a closed one for, like, loss of a child, loss of, divorce, like all those things that, like, talking about them to everyone, you're going to get, sympathy, empathy, whatever. But talking to people who've also experienced it is a whole nother level. So to have those rooms, chat rooms where people can be like, we are all experiencing it or have experienced it, it just brings it to a whole nother level of
Yeah.
relationship and community.
I love that this to me highlights community is very much possible in any space. It just takes intentionality and probably some work in organizing. Like, just because you open up the doors to your building doesn't mean community automatically happens. You still have to be intentional about the way that people gather and where they go next, and are people greeting you, and what's the whole just user experience in a physical environment. And like you're saying here, these are examples of making possible connection and relationship and community that even then has different capabilities beyond what our, traditional brick and mortar experiences have been, because like you're saying, the ability to search the history and see the conversations and see the response, find that individual based off of the conversations you can eavesdrop on. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
I've heard stories of, like, oh, I walked into a church, and in that moment there was an AA group meeting, and that's exactly what I needed. And, it was just like this beautiful story. But that's like, 1 hour, one time a week, maybe one
Yep.
time a month. This is, you walk in, anytime someone walks into your church, your digital church, with a problem, that group is meeting.
Yep.
They're meeting
Yep.
right now. It's incredible.
I know if people want to check out other examples of Discord for online ministry and community, Nathan Webb's whole Checkpoint Church is all run on Discord as well. I definitely would recommend people there, which is the same exact kind of a thing, and good examples of how it's
Yeah, he's
structured.
got a
So
really robust group that's
yeah,
that's on there. Like,
you
they're
all
they're chatting all the time.
you all are brilliant. Uh, all right, so you're rocking Discord. Zoom is still a part of it. Um, I echo Zoom as well. I think there, I mean Zoom fatigue, meeting fatigue is a thing, but so is like in-person meeting fatigue,
Oh,
unless you're like super extrovert. So I mean, that's just called being peopled out, I think.
yeah.
But I'm with you. I think the value of Zoom and just the ability to have ways to connect in multiple modalities. And I think I love what you're doing with Discord, and I know Zoom is a part of what you do, offers that at Riverside. Um, Sunday morning in particular often oscillates because we'll have like a Bible study that's happening on Zoom before the church service starts, and there's a good number of people in the building and online. It's a hybrid experience, and then the church service is broadcast live on YouTube. So there's a good number of people in the live chat who are very active there, and then we have virtual coffee hour after, and it's always interesting to me to see the correlation of the people who were most active in the live chat and then jumping on, being a part of virtual coffee hour. We connect with one another and talk with the preacher. But I like it because it just brings these different ways for people to have connection with one another. And to me, that to me is the work that a pastor does to cultivate community in any space, but it's particularly online, is you can't just expect it to happen in one, like, this is the only route. There has to be multiple paths of entry and multiple ways of overlap, because I think to me community is the thing that happens when all of that happens over time. It's not just I met you once, now we're best friends. It's we kept bumping into each other in different ways and having reasons to recall the previous thing, and a new inside joke is made, and that over time just builds into something beautiful. And I think, like we're saying, the internet might actually make it more possible to do that if we dive in and do it with the same or even greater intention, rather than just hoping it happens on accident.
I've seen a couple articles starting to come out about the how people are vulnerable on the internet more than they are in person. And I've said, like, anonymity is a blessing and a curse. You get the trolls, but you also get the people who are going to ask a question they would never put their face to. They'll make some account user 35762 ask the question, and so there is some real benefits that are starting to show of what people can do online as far as being vulnerable and being themselves. And I'm starting to play around with like extroverted spaces versus introverted spaces. I would say like my TikTok lives are really good for my introverted people because I was kind of noticing like there's people who will come to my lives but they're not getting on Zoom, they're not getting into the Discord, like they're not, or they're in the Discord, they're not chatting at all, and I believe presence is interaction, so that's fine. But I was like, why is that? And I really do think there are some people who are just much more comfortable listening to the conversation, nodding along, and just being like, yeah, that was great. As an extrovert, I don't understand that. Like, I need to get in, I need to talk about it, I need to let them know my opinion, but like, that's not everybody. And so, as I'm starting to like experiment with different things, I could see being like, okay, this is a more extroverted space. This is an introverted space. Um, I think about that live that I had, one of the first lives that I was like, oh, community is happening on TikTok, which was somebody came in, said that they were done with life, they had a rough day, this was it. And the strangers who came into the comments to be like, where are you? What's going on? Like, oh, you're 3 hours from me. Let's meet up. All that stuff. And I was like, what is happening? They don't know this person. I don't know this person. Like, what are we doing? Then to find out the next day that they went to that person's account the same as I did, saw that they had made it through the night and started texts like saying like, we're proud of you, so great to have you here, what do you want to do today, what are you looking forward to, and being like, these are strangers on the internet with a stranger on the internet, but they are caring and they are loving. And but that is a little bit more of it. Like if that person is more introverted, they might not call a hotline. They might not, put their voice, their phone number, their positioning into that system, but they can find some places where some people are and, let people know how they feel and get love in return in a way that is not scary to them. They're not trying to hug you. They're not trying to, get in your space. It's just these affirming words.
Makes me think that a lot of this just goes back to, you know, asking the question, what do we mean by community? Because so often the pushback that sometimes happens in digital ministry spaces is that this online stuff isn't real. It's not real community because there's this firm belief that community is like the ability to, share a meal and break bread and that kind of a mentality. And not to diminish the value in that, there's great value in that, but that's not the only definition of community. I would say that the what you just described, people being able to show up and support one another and be present in those particular moments when it's most needed, like, great, you can get a bunch of people and have a potluck, but who's going to be there in the moment of crisis? Like, to me, community is what allows for both of those to happen. If we just exclude one and not the other, so if we can paint the picture of what is community as this bigger thing, and then it makes me think, oh, I forget who it is. I'll put it on screen. This guy talked about these four spaces of belonging, which is nothing, that I'm making up. What does he say? There's like public space, communal space. Oh, I have it somewhere on my desktop here. Um, Public, social, personal, and intimate. And they have to do with like physical space and like the proximity, proxemics, that's what it's called. Oh, what's the guy's name? But the study of proxemics and how relationships shift with the physical closeness or distance you have. And like a public space, you have like 6 to 10 feet of distance. A social space, it gets closer and closer, and intimate is obviously very close. And I think there's often this myth that in churches it happens a lot of times. The goal is to get you from the public space and move you into the center, into the intimate space. It's like, no, that's not healthy. We can't manage that. That's just dysfunctional and leads to a lot of problems. But how do we provide people what they need in all of those spaces? How do we make sure there is some sort of connection or something offered and available in the public, in the social, in the personal, in the intimate, maybe not intimate even in faith communities. Save that for you and your partner or whatever. But what I'm saying is we need to repaint or refresh our screen on what we mean by community, and that helps,
Yeah.
in my mind, see the varied types of things that we're doing as all helping move towards the same ultimate end.
And I would say where we're one of our biggest weaknesses is that we're not giving credit to the public space. Like
Yeah.
we really want people to like get closer and closer, but it's still worth being out there and expressing your idea of the gospel, your love, your social justice, whatever it is, to the public. And I think that's a lot of what I do with the TikTok is like, those people, those 300,000 people are never going to all be on a Zoom meeting with me. They're never all going to be in my Discord. That would be super cool, but it's just not going to happen because some of them are just there for that public space to be like,
Yep.
okay, I have one Christian in my life that I can look at and say, wow, I really like the way that they're living their life. I like the way, but I'm not a Christian and I don't want to be, but I can like keep that space to be like, not all of them are going to be yelling at me on the street. So the public space, the public community space needs a little bit more attention, I feel, from
Yeah.
especially progressive Christians to say like, I just want to let you know who we are, but I
Hmm.
don't expect anything else.
And validating that as cultivating community. That's not just, being soapbox preacher who's yelling at passersby. You're creating a space for that wide range sense of belonging. They feel a sense of belonging in that public sense of I'm a part of this general conversation and momentum, and Rev Bethany's doing it and I get to check in and hear the latest thing and be inspired or be entertained or be whatever. Yeah, we need that, and we can't just diminish the value of that or not make space for it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I feel like we could talk about cultivating community for days because it's literally our jobs. So we'll just have to keep doing it and then come back and give updates. But I've gotten some good insights on Discord just from this conversation. Zoom is still a valuable tool. The intentionality, the different spaces.
Yep.
Um,
I'll
there we
throw
go.
a hint out there for virtual reality. Get your Oculus. Every church needs an Oculus. Even if it's a teenager playing on it, there's chat rooms out there where people are saying some things that we need to be
Mm.
here. They need to hear our voice. They need to hear our perspective. So, just get out there.
Okay, well, next time we'll talk about why churches should use VR, but
Okay, good.
maybe I need to use my VR at least one more time before I can be a conversation partner in that one. Otherwise, I will just be listening. I'll be the audience for that one.
There you
We'll
go.
see. All right, part two of this, we're going to talk about the news. So
Right.
I'm excited. This is an experiment, but we're going to each share something happening generally that we've seen or heard in the news of the world that impacts or intersects digital ministry, technology, what's happening, and just how it might make its way into the stuff that we do in digital ministry. So, do you have something? I have something, but I want to let you go first in case we have the same thing, and that way I can.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing I've been following, keeping track of, is a lot of the laws, the LGBTQ laws and the drag queen laws and those kinds of things. And I think I have a really great place in digital spaces to let people know that this is not a strictly Christian attack. Like, this is not something that all of us are, backing or wanting, or, that some of us are just as offended as you are. Also, I have members of our tapestry who are trans who are in Florida. And so we've reached out and been like, what do you need? What's the exit plan? Where do you plan on going if this thing gets a little bit too worse? Do you feel like you need to leave? And so to keep an eye on that, especially as digital, you got to be global in like thinking about where all my people are. And so I think that has been a big part of me just kind of being like, okay, what state is that? Who do I know that's there? What do they need? Reaching out, helping people make plans, and trying to keep my ear out for where I can bring my face physically. Like if there's something happening in Denver, like I'm going to be there with my collar on, with, my business cards to say, hey, this needs to be something that we all take seriously.
Mine feels very superfluous compared to how yours was actually
Oh,
like a
no, sorry.
serious like ministry thing. Um, so, but you win the extra, crowns in
See, you
heaven.
should have gone first. I would have gotten the vibe, the gauge.
No, there is no vibe. This is all making it up as we go. Build the plane as it flies, tie your shoes while we run, all that good stuff. And I think that's so essential because what I love, you already made the connections of these things happen in the world, and the digital ministry aspect is digital ministry paying attention to all of it. Has to pay attention to all of it. It can't just be like it's redefining the boundaries of parish, and it's no longer what happens within whatever mile radius of my physical location. It's suddenly we we have to become the global citizens we've always been, recognizing our neighbor isn't just the person across the street from us. It's the person, who's hanging out in Florida and wherever and all these places. So
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes. Well, my thing from the news was just it's about 24 hours old, I think, as of recording this. Today is Thursday, July 6th, and in the past, is it the 6th or the 7th? It's the 6th. In the past 24 hours, Meta has launched a whole new platform called Threads, which is not clothing. It's basically Twitter brought to you by Instagram. um, and I've joined. I'm on Threads. So is Riverside. I got them on there too. And I have to say, at least initially, it feels very much like the early days of Twitter, which is a good thing, I would say.
I skipped
However,
that, so like maybe I need to give this a
oh,
shot.
oh, you missed early Twitter. Early
I
Twitter was
did.
good. Yeah.
I
Uh,
missed it on
it,
purpose. I didn't think I was witty enough to be on Twitter. And now I've
yeah.
cultivated my spiritual gift of sass, so now I think I
Yeah, so
probably should.
you're like you're the perfect audience for it. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm conflicted because it's basically which overlord do you want to give your data to, Musk or Zuckerberg? And I feel like whoever wins the cage fight, is that who we serve instead? I don't know.
Zuckerberg's already got everything, so
Yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of interesting things that I think is worth just paying attention to. There's been a lot of talk about like, okay, Twitter's dead, which I think is pretty much true for a lot of reasons. What's going to be the next Twitter, the thing that fills that space of just public, like what's the next digital public square kind of a thing? Um, and there's been a lot of attempts, Mastodon, Blue Sky, the whole Fediverse with the Federation rather than, which is a whole thing I barely know enough about to even talk about. But it's interesting how in like 24 hours, the question of what's going to be the next Twitter just became, well, it's obviously this, right? At least that seems to be how it feels 24 hours in. And I think there's been a lot of stats of within 24 hours, they got like insane number of users on the
is
platform.
this a
Like
whole
it's got
nother app or is it something?
Yes, it's a
Okay.
whole other app, but it's directly connected to Instagram. So you log in through so that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. They didn't have to recruit a new audience. They just had to convert their audience from one platform over. Now, what I'm waiting for them to do, this is getting really technical and in the weeds. Have you noticed on Instagram how there's the Instagram Notes section? It's like a new
Yeah.
thing over in the. I know I don't know what to do with it. It's weird. I've touched it like twice in my life. What I wish they would do is make it so whenever I post on Threads, that becomes my note, and so like it's automatically living in both
You heard it here
spaces.
first, Zuckerberg. If you take this, you got to give
Yeah,
credit.
yeah, yeah. It would give me a reason to use notes, and it would make the two platforms feel like they're working together without feeling like it's overwhelming. So I just think I'm intrigued. I'm always intrigued by new platforms, and we'll see what. And oh, it's interesting to know NPR is on Threads, and they were one
Okay.
of the first news organizations to leave Twitter, and they have officially joined Threads. So it's interesting just to
Interesting.
see what's going to happen. And it's
Okay,
literally
I'm
as of
gonna
this
open up my phone
conversation,
right now. I'm gonna
24
get
hours old.
down,
Yeah.
get threads going. We'll go.
All right, now it's time to talk about some questions.
Okay.
This is the third and final part of this show where we talk about questions from people who actually send in questions. If you have questions, you can go to howtododigitalministry.com and fill out a form and share your questions, and then we'll answer them on another episode. Maybe Bethany will be the co-host. You never
Answers
know.
are loosely used.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so this first question is from Jenny, and she asks, should worship leaders look at the congregation in the room or into the camera? What do you think? I have a very
I
biased opinion.
I consider the camera another person in the room, and I try to give like a little bit more time to the camera. Not like 50-50, but like maybe 60% in the room and 40% in the camera. Because you can look over the camera multiple times, but that at least engages and been like, I know you're here, that kind of thing. I don't think it needs to be a direct, like, through there, because I think we're used to Zoom and, our eyes are not exactly eye contacty. But definitely, like, if I was in a physical church still, I like when I go to Pulpit Supply, I always ask like, "Where's the camera?" I am thinking like to get a wig and just put it on top because sometimes I forget where it is. Like, where was it again? I don't know what's going on. Like, if I just have a wig I can put on and be like, okay, there's camera lady. Look down that camera.
Yeah, I would tell someone, maybe this would be my advice to you. Next time you're at a church that does that, ask them, how do you know how many people are worshiping online and how many people are worshiping the space? My theory is you should spend most of your time looking at most of the people and some of your time looking at all of the people. And I think maybe the percentage of where you look should be proportionate to the percentage of people there. Now, unless you have a sense of how many people exist through that camera, you're going to just biologically be drawn to the other living, breathing meat sacks in the room. And so you're just going to look at the faces you see, unless there's a wig on the camera, maybe. At Riverside, we have roughly 60% of our Sunday morning worshiping congregation not in the room. They're
Wow.
someplace else watching online. So in my mind, I'm like, we should spend at least 60% of our time looking into the camera. You don't just look at the camera when you're talking about the online worshipers, because you don't just look at the people in the room when you talk about the in-person people. Why are they the default? So I think it's kind of just being proportional to, well, where are the people? And regardless, even if it's like 90% in the room, 10% online, you still give them some intentionality. You don't just forget about them or overlook them. And maybe you include them more because the online experience, and by include them more, I mean at least the eye contact, because the online experience can feel voyeuristic. It can feel like I'm peeking in through a window watching church happen. And something as simple as looking into the camera, I mean, this feels probably a whole lot more personal than if I was just talking to you like this.
Right.
You know, it's just like, what's over there? What are you looking at? It's just a messy basement, is all it is.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
Okay, question number two comes from Adele, not the singer. This is a different Adele. Uh, and I picked this one specifically for you because I think
Oh no.
you did this well. How many people and how much money does it really take to have an effective digital ministry?
How many people? How much money? Uh, what, an iPhone is like, $25 a month when you get the plan, and different platforms will like you have to have 1,000 followers on TikTok to go live. But if you got five and they're watching and engaging and having a good time, like that's good. That's great. Like,
Yeah.
I love how many different pastors there are on TikTok because they're all able to speak to people in a different way. My my vibe, being a little bit lighthearted and stubbornly calm and engaging with trolls. Some people don't like that, but there are other pastors who will not even engage with the trolls. They're like, I'm just not going to give them any attention, not even a bat of the eye, and I applaud that. It's just not my style. So I would say if you've got an iPhone or an Android and you're posting every once in a while and you've got a couple people who are watching you, you're doing it. Like, that is super cool.
You, I think, are my favorite example of this because, now you have this unique opportunity to get to really lean in and do it in a very, this is what you do kind of way. But I mean, you just stumbled into this. You're like, oh, TikTok. There are people there. There are students in my church who are here. What are they hearing from other voices? I will offer them what I think they should also encounter about a God who welcomes and loves everybody. So it literally, yeah, the thing you probably already have within 2 feet of you, and I mean, people wise, I think that comes down to what do you mean? People often think a digital ministry is like this multi-camera live stream production, and that's can be nice, but it can honestly get in the way. I think the like break it down, keep it simple, people relating to people in authentic ways is all it needs to be. So I mean,
Yeah, and I get that the
yeah,
numbers can be really distracting. Like, these apps are made to make you want more numbers, and I've fallen into the, like, I used to I was really close to like exactly 300,000, and it falls down because people leave the app. There's bots. There's all the, and like seeing those numbers fall is just like, oh my gosh, just like how we get the anxiety of like when we do the annual report, like, oh my gosh, we lost 10% of our membership. Like, oh, I get that those numbers and it's made for that, but if you take out the word digital and say, what is ministry? I
yeah.
think we're better apt to say, if you helped somebody on the street, that is ministry. What is discipleship? I did a thing in the name of God to bring God's glory and the kingdom of God to earth. Like, one time, one thing, that is it. And so we get online and we put that digital word in front of it and we think like, oh, there's a goal. And I have to be reminded of it too. Like, I don't want my goal for this month to get another 100 followers. Sure, maybe that should be my goal, but as a minister, I am trying hard to fight that system to say, no, that's not what I value. What I value is impact, people commenting, I've never heard that before, thank you so much. And people commenting, like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard, because that means I'm engaging with really important conversations.
Which, I mean, getting caught into the numbers game is not exclusive to online stuff. It's probably one of the most common metrics that churches everywhere use. We count butts in seats and dollars in the offering plate, and the correlation between the two. And more people in the room means more money, right? And better sermon equals more people and more money. And but is that really what spiritual formation and discipleship and this work of the gospel is about? I mean, that's what late stage capitalism is about, getting more people and more money, and the church has often become, a byproduct of that, but it doesn't have to be what this is about. I will say that I think it can be overwhelming because there are so many ways to do stuff in these digital ways. Um, so it can feel like I just need a whole lot of people and a whole big budget to be able to do all of it. I have to have a podcast and a video thing and be on Discord and Zoom and TikTok and now Threads apparently and all these things. And so how do I do anything well when I'm trying to do all the things? And the answer is you probably don't. You're just, barely skimming the surface. And it's the sense of like, okay, just pick a thing and try to go a little deeper rather than doing all the things. Like I feel like TikTok feels like where I've seen you just lean in so much. And yeah, you can cross post stuff on Reels and Shorts because it's the same format and stuff, but it seems like you have a depth with TikTok as an aesthetic and as a community and just as a platform, and you let other things go for that reason.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the church also, one of the things we do is we try to be everything to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet digital ministry has really taught me to like engage with your niche. Like, who are your people? And like, there are other people engaging with me, but like, if I am focusing on this type of person, then I'm getting what I need, and someone else has a different kind of person. There was a church, I think in Michigan, or maybe it was an international church, but they went door to door and they asked the man of the house what needed to be in the church for them to bring their family. So it was like they needed to have a good women's ministry because their wives needed to go. They needed a good children's ministry. And they were looking at like the 20, 30-year-old male as their target. And they created a ministry for him. And that is what they kind of formulate around. And so, we read that and we're like, oh man, no, church should be for everybody. Yeah, but we are the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on this finger over here. And if you
Yep.
focus on your, eyeball over there, we will all get this done. But trying to be everything to everybody on every platform, trying to reach every single user, no. That's too much.
Yep. So maybe what it really takes to have an effective digital ministry is not a huge number of people or a giant budget. It's that clarity and focus and discipline to be like, there's a lot of shiny things, but I'm going to really try to do this one thing that I feel called and compelled to, energized by, and just resonates with. And
Yeah. And that
that's,
has led me to other. The reason I'm on Instagram is because TikTok was like, we're going to go away. And I was like, I better find another spot. Then YouTube is like the most searchable place. So I put it on YouTube. Like, I go to other places because I see the track of like the usefulness, not
yep,
just because I will go on Threads just for the heck of it, because I'm on Threads for the heck of it, and I'm on Metaverse for the heck of it, but I'm not trying to do ministry there yet. I'm
yep.
just getting to know the culture.
Okay, and we could have a whole other
I know,
conversation
but
on
now we're
well, no, I'm thinking the strategy behind. I mean, we live at a unique moment when all these social platforms align with vertical short form content, and if you're making 60-second or less vertical content, you are hitting both the psychology and the constraints of all the platforms in ways that we've never seen before, and they're all promoting it. So it's really, yeah, this is the question no one asked, but basically we all should be leaning into short form vertical content if we want to just optimize the ability to reach people who are sitting in front of these things waiting for something to pop up in front of them. So
hmm
if no one else does it, at least you're doing it. So thanks, Bethany.
no pressure. Well, I need more
Okay.
people. More people
Yeah.
can come and do it.
It's hard to have time. It just takes so much time to make the stuff. That's
It
my
does.
challenge too. Yeah. Which is why you can't do all the things. You got to just be like, what are you actually going to do? Now this is becoming therapy. So I can't do all the things, even though I feel like I want to and try to, and then I never run into time. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go contemplate that. This is a good place to wrap up. This has been great. Bethany, always good to get to sit down in a digital recording studio with you and talk about all these things. Soon and very soon, we might actually be in the same space. Maybe we'll do it again. Looking forward to that. More to come. But until then, go follow Rev Bethany on every social platform on the internet, including Threads. Maybe by the time this goes live, she'll be on
Yeah.
We'll give you a minute.